Welcome everybody, welcome to the Overkill Festival. I'm really happy to welcome you for this new program, fully online today. We had a beautiful weekend, a beautiful opening in our physical space, a little bit of a tour yesterday for the people online. So I hope that wherever you are enjoying this festival and all the programs. And today I'm really happy to start with the talks that we have for the whole week. And I'm here in our beautiful stage that you can also use when you visit the festival. I'm here with Aynouk and Manique, who are going to introduce themselves and the whole program for tonight and for the days to come. But I wish you a beautiful evening, and don't hesitate to use the chat if you have questions, comments. We have a wonderful moderator to help you with if you have technical issues. And we have wonderful guests, so have a beautiful evening.
Yeah, hello everyone. We are here in a ballenbak. It's called in Dutch. It has a lot of colors, and we're extremely happy that we are here at this beautiful Overkill Festival. There's great work to be seen, and also for the coming 2 hours online. Tonight we will talk about queer embodiment. That's the theme of tonight, and we have 4 wonderful speakers selected for you. The first one is Matias Brunacci. He made a work especially for Overkill Festival that's about queer bodies basically online and how do you portray them. The second speaker is Lena Kuzmic, who will tell something about their practice. They are queer also themselves, and they will elaborate on that. We have Stella Marbles talking about the mask you live in, live from London. And we have Mala Bari, also a beautiful artist who will talk about more of the physical body and what queer means to them. Also, maybe it's good to introduce ourselves for a little bit. My name is Aynouk. I'm a curator, a journalist, an advisor. I work mostly in the cultural sector, and my work revolves around gender, identity, appearance, and queer identities as well. So how can we basically form new identities through appearance, and how do they relate to the ones that are already existing? So I do a lot of lecturing, teaching, curating around that theme, and I'm very happy to be here and being a part of Overkill Festival to dig into this very interesting theme, which is more about the online identities, of course. And I think there's a lot of information about that and a lot of inspiring things that are happening there. Manique.
Yeah, so
maybe it's good to introduce you as well.
My name is Manique Hendricks, and I'm an art historian. I work as a junior curator at the Lima, the Media Arts Institute in Amsterdam, and I also work as a freelance curator, writer, and researcher, focusing on themes such as representation, the body, but also camp, identity, and club culture. And so we're super happy to present to you the first chapter of the program that Aynouk and I curated for Overkill on queer embodiment.
Yeah, maybe it's also good to say that please write it down in your agenda that we also have a 2-hour program tomorrow, which is about pluriform identities. Then we have another program on Thursday, which is about beyond human. And the 4th panel symposium will be on Friday, and this will be about digital togetherness. So all of them are very interesting. Please write them down, and we hope to also see you there. Right now, we are going to our first speaker and also introduce maybe the theme a little bit. The goal of tonight, is answering some of the following questions. What happens when queer people craft new virtual bodies in online space? Are we still bound to the rules of physicality and existing binary structures, or can we go beyond that? And how can queerness disrupt also what virtual bodies look like? I don't know who I'm talking to exactly, because we're looking in this black hole in the void. But if you have any questions about what this notion of queer is, then please use the chat. You can do that all the time when people are speaking, and then every after presentation we have some moments to answer your questions, or at least the artists do. All right. Matias, we start with you. I'm going to do a little bit of a small word about you, introduce you. Matias Brunacci, you are an Argentinian-Italian new media artist, a developer and a creative technologist born in Buenos Aires and based in Berlin. And your work takes on multiple forms, ranging from audiovisual performances to multimedia installations. And Matias, you are interested in the area of art and technology, which integrates programming, audio and video design, game engine environments, 3D, virtual and mixed reality, and interactive installation. Well, this sounds like a lot, but I have to say you definitely blew us away with the work you make. So I will not take up more space any more than I should. Matias, can you tell me about the work you made and tell us your inspirations about that? It would be wonderful. We see already a beautiful image. Please elaborate.
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm now inside the work I made for the festival in a remote way, of course. This is a VR experience. You can just only experience if you are there with a VR headset, but I just made this special version to show a little bit what I did and what it's about. So yeah, thank you for the interaction as well. And basically, what I did is my research for this work is based on avatars and non-binary avatars, right? So basically what I did, and what you can see here, is a room full of mirrors around, and yeah, the avatars are I just made. This is me. We're literally in VR right now, just showing a little bit the experience. And yeah, this is more or less, it's not really like a finished work, I would say, but it's mostly based on this research about non-binary avatars and how digital avatars were represented in the history of video games. So I will share with you a bit of my research. Let me just go to my browser here. So yeah, basically, I grew up playing video games, a lot of video games, and this image is actually quite accurate because I used to play video games with my family, which is actually quite weird in this era, but this kind of represents my childhood. But of course, all these old graphics were. So I grew up during the 90s. So I was playing mostly like super, let's say, cheap graphics video games, and so I started to grow up. And as I grew up, graphics grew up with me, and better consoles and better games were released. And at some point during the 90s, the designers decided to start stylizing the characters, the avatars, right? Because at the very beginning they didn't have too much space because of the pixel size. So if you see here, for instance, in Peach, this is a character from Super Mario. Yeah, they couldn't really define the character, right? The silhouette. It was mostly like a silhouette, let's say. And then as the years came, then it started to define a better silhouette and a better, more humanoid, let's say, avatar, more defined, right? But at some point during these years, I think something happened, something weird happened, mostly, I guess, because of programmers, male programmers controlling the whole video game scene, let's say. So one of the games I played the most was Diablo 2, and I just realized the other day that I came back to this image, and I started to see like, okay, so there were some sexism already in this era. Like if you can see here the difference between the knights, and so this was also a knight, the woman knights, and this was the man. Like you can start like seeing like how girls has like all these non-armored areas around their bodies, and of course like boobs and all these aspects are super exaggerated. And yeah, which I found that is called like something that is called bikini armor. So if you search in Google bikini armor, you will find a lot of examples, like something like related to this kind of hypersexualization of the avatars' bodies. So I grew up with these feelings and with these things on my mind. At that moment, of course, I was a kid and I didn't thought about this. But now I realize that kind of really fucked up a little bit my brain in this sense, unfortunately. So yeah, this is also called like, I mean, there are a lot of debates around this female armor and male armor differences. And of course, what happened with this is like you get like same avatar, same character, same levels, same stats, same items or whatever, but then you still have like this super hyper sexualization of bodies, right? And of course, I play some really shitty video games that at that time were like super entertaining. But for instance, this is Duke Nukem, and Duke Nukem was a really sexist game. Of course, at that time I didn't know it, but yeah. Couple of these examples, like I don't know. Of course, you also know about Tomb Raider. This was a super hyper sexualized avatar, and also play a lot of Sims. And I still remember this is coming from the Sims 1, the very first version, and where you couldn't really choose a different genre, right? So yeah, I think later on they kind of make available to let the user so that they could like have like they could marry if they were like the same gender, but it was later on the game. It was not part of the first version. So yeah, kind of I grew up like playing all these video games, which kind of defined myself in a very indirect way. And I didn't know that at that time, of course, but I was also watching a lot of cartoons, a lot of animes. And for instance, yeah, it was almost the same in cartoons, except for the Zodiac Knights. And I admit that I had a crush on this knight. It was Andromeda. And I think it was one of the first things I started like seeing around this topic about like, yeah, what is like who is this person, you know? I started like having like this very subtle impression of like what a non-binary archetype would be, and I had the same feeling with this other anime cartoon I was watching when I was, I don't know, 8 years old or something like that, which is called Ranma, and this was more related to, yeah, I don't know, like transgender archetypes. So yeah, I kind of like during my research, I noticed all these things and how all these things affected me. And yeah, so now I'm just focusing on VR a lot for my own work. And in VR, you have something that is called immersion, which is mostly related with all the devices you can attach around, like gloves and stuff. And as if you have a really fancy setup, you will totally feel like super immersed, right? Because immersion is also like about technology and yeah, how can we substitute real senses for virtual ones to get like, of course, like super vivid experiences. But it's not only about immersion, you know. VR is a lot about embodiment. And embodiment is the possibility in VR to visualize and substitute a person's real body by a life-size virtual one, which means that you can embody someone, right? This is super important in VR. And I was thinking a lot about this, about the body and how can we represent this body. And at the very beginning during my own work, I was not really focusing on bodies, but I started like feeling that this is a very important part. So I started like playing with hands, like this, for instance, me playing with hand tracking. But as you can see here, I'm not using an avatar, I'm just using the hands. But I really started to feel and see that, yeah, this is a really powerful thing, and I need to focusing more on this representation, these body representations. And I want to show you something that is not actually related with VR, but it's also about embodiment. And it's a nice experiment which is called the rubber hand illusion. So yeah, this is very, very interesting experiment. And so basically, it's really easy to fake bodies and this type of feelings in VR, right? So it's really, really powerful and easy to trick the brain, to trick the brain of the user into thinking that they are embodying someone, that they are, I don't know, they have a different body, or the situation is real, not only about the context around the VR work, but also like from the inside. And I'm talking about the body of the user, their virtual body, right? So I also found a couple of works that were really interesting. For instance, this is an embodied experience that lets the user experience sexual harassment, for instance. And there are a lot of, I mean, this is like a scientific paper. So they show like, for instance, you could embody a woman and then go to this kind of bar, and then you have all these dudes just telling you stuff. And or for instance, I don't know, in a work situation, and they did all these really nice studies and proved that all the men's and women's and all the spectrum in the middle, they will react in a very good way to this experience, and so basically they prove like how important and how how powerful embodiment in VR is. So you could really change perspective on people just by let them like embody a different body in a different situation, right? And then I also start to see a lot of people also working and using VR to treat, for instance, I don't know, gender dysphoria. This is a work from Marcel Baltarete. They is working with avatars mostly, and humanoid and non-humanoid avatars, and trying to connect with a different type of body to avoid like this kind of gender dysphoria, right? So I found this super interesting. Also, this other work about swapping genders. This is quite old one. I think it's from 2013 or something like that, and it's basically like two persons with two different VR headsets, where both see each other's body. I can show you a super small clip.
Matias' sound is not working. Yeah?
Kun je wat vertellen? Is het geen sound?
So yeah, you basically get the idea. You get the perspective and the point of view of the other one, which is also super interesting and super powerful. And yeah, I think this was a really a nice example. So I was also thinking about this, and with all the AI we have now, and all the opportunities to mix and recreate and create new faces, and the mix between these faces. This is, for instance, something made with the style gang, where of course you can not only mix like males or females body, but also all the genders in between. And yeah, I think this is also really related with this idea. Also, I don't know if you know this website, which is called thispersondoesn'texist.com. Like if you refresh, every time you refresh, you will get a different person, which is a mix of different faces created by AI. And so yeah, and then I found also this, which is the first genderless voice created, like to be used as like Siri and all these robots.
Matias, can you hear me?
Yes.
I think your sound in the clips is not working.
Ah, really?
Yes.
Okay. No problem. Yeah, I can continue. I don't need that much.
That was not
anyway,
all necessary in the clips, I think, but maybe
But
this one.
is
This was his only sound,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, this is a genderless Siri, let's say, which is was made with a mix of different voices, and they put it all together, and they created this kind of mix of non-genderless mix of voices, which I think is also something I was also trying to do with my own avatars. And then
we will put the link in the chat.
Yeah, we will put the link in the chat just for the for the people to know. Okay, just proceed, please.
Yeah, so then there's this app called VR Chat, which is quite famous now, and I was playing this a lot lately, and I did some research about it as well. Not only by building worlds inside, but also like building avatars, because VR Chat lets you create your own avatars and play with them. And it's very interesting because the amount of, how would you say, like trans-digital avatars in this universe is really amazing. There are people from all ages, from all genders, like personifying like a lot of different people from all characteristics, and I don't know. I think it's a very good place to see this like live, like this kind of embodiment. So then I started, of course, like putting all these things together, and so I end up searching for an avatar generator that let me mix all these ideas and genders and in an easy way. But then, of course, it was pretty difficult because all these avatar generators, like when you go to, for instance, create a new avatar, right? You only can specify masculine or feminine, and if you don't specify, then at least in this website you can at least like change and mix some values, but not really. It's not that flexible, which I think is kind of a pity. But at least I could like use a couple of different settings on them. But I think this is the most flexible avatar generator I found. The other ones are really not flexible at all. So at least here I could I don't know, add beards to the faces, or like mostly changing like hair colors and the clothes and things like that. So I created like 17 avatars with this app, and which are these ones. And so yeah, that's basically what it is. But I mean, of course, there are a lot of limitations, as I said, and yeah, I think these limitations are also part of the problem, and I don't think there is a like a better way to do this at the moment. I think from this point in the history to this one, we did a lot of we move on, right? Like this is much accurate, much contemporary with the things we're feeling, with the things that are happening regarding to gender, but still we are not really prepared, and the industry, the gaming industry, is also still like super dominated by men's, and we are still pretty far away from it. But I don't know, I think events like this, like the Overkill and these things that are happening now, are pushing forward the boundaries. So I'm happy that this is already happening, and I'm also part of the process. So basically, this is the mix of all these avatars I made, and it's kind of like a symbol of a mixed genderless persona, right? Which I think is what we need, or at least to have it like as a possibility to experiment. And I don't know, I wish when I was a kid to have like this kind of inputs, to know that there were something in between, something that was not really super feminized or super masculine or something like that. So
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Matthias, thank you so. Are you done?
Just more or less.
Oh, sorry. Oh, we're not. Okay. Sorry. No, you're still gonna go into the work now, right? Okay. I was clapping too early. I'm really impressed by all the research you did. That's just what I wanted to say.
Thanks.
So now we're going into your work, and maybe it's also good to say that people can still see Matthias's work at Overkill Festival in Enschede, and you can still visit it till 5 every day, despite the Corona rules. You can still go and visit, but this is also gives us a sneak preview. You can explain, Matthias. That would be great.
Sorry?
I thought maybe you wanted to say something.
I think I'm good.
Oh, you're done?
I'm done, yeah.
Okay. Well, then thank you very much for a very, very, very extensive presentation. Yeah, are there any questions already from the chat? No?
Just put them in the chat.
Put them in the chat if you have any questions. I think Matthias's work about how queer is not being possible to be online. It's very difficult to. There's very strong notions of the binary basically online, and it's very interesting to see that this is not actually a topic yet, right? In this whole gaming industry or a VR industry, that we now only come up with a genderless voice. Can I ask you, why do you think this is so important to move beyond this notion of male and female? Because you seem also very passionate about it, you know?
Yeah, well, I mean, I can only talk about my experience, and so I just found this gray spectrum when I grew up, and when I was doing this research, I started like watching like the video games I was playing when I was a kid, and the characters I was using, and yeah, I can't really say or distinguish like what these things did to me, but I always wondering like what would happen like if at that time if I had the option to choose in between gender characters, you know, what would happen, like how this will affect me in the future, or I don't know, like I have this question as well. But I don't know, like for instance, this the Sims game example I showed. I still remember like when I was trying to marry like two people from the same gender, I couldn't, and I was wondering why. And then I think now the Sims doesn't have this problem anymore, so you can do whatever you want with them. So yeah, I'm still asking myself what would happen. What would happen if I would have this option? Yeah,
probably you would be this very queer like octopus.
Yeah, for instance, like could be interspecies as well.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, and Matias, I was wondering, seeing your work process, what were the choices you made while making the avatars in this program?
So, well, first of all, it was like a technical problem, because I didn't have the time to create my own avatars, and I really wanted to have multiple of them. But then I thought that it was a really good challenge to use a tool that it was already built on, that it was already there, and I could use it. And I started searching about. Yeah, I mean, I just started realizing that okay, so there is really no way to create a non-binary, automatic like generative non-binary avatar. I need to do it by myself.
Yeah.
And then it was quite a surprise, because I thought that we were more evolved in this sense, you know. And then it was like, okay, the 3 or 4 avatar generators I found, yeah, you can just switch between female and masculine types of bodies, and then what is in between, which is not that much, you know. It's always a little bit feminine, a little bit masculine. That's all, you know, nothing in between. And with this, I found that, yeah, it was a little bit flexible, with faces especially, but yeah, I also wanted to represent this problem, you know.
Yeah, because did you experience limitations within this specific program?
Sorry, second?
Did you experience limitations within this specific program?
Yeah, exactly, especially with the body types. Like if you see here, all the body types are really masculine or feminine. The only things I could change are related to the face. And like, I don't know, like putting makeup on male faces, or like beards on female faces. But that was all. It's not really that flexible. But yeah, it's a limitation. I mean, this is the digital world where we are living. Like if you don't have the knowledge to create your own avatar that will fit you and represent yourself in a good way, then you will have digital gender dysphoria for sure. At least, yeah. I mean, yeah, only if you don't have the knowledge, right? Otherwise, like in VR chat, I know a lot of people that are creating their own avatars, mostly because of this also. They don't feel represented by their generative pre-made presets that they can use.
Exactly.
I have a question, Matias, from Jonah. And they ask, how do you feel that the very binary sexualization might have affected people? Or more broadly, is it an effect of society that these characters are created as such? And did it affect how people perceive themselves or feel they can express themselves? It's a very broad question, but I hope you get some of the gist.
Yeah, sure. I mean, as I say, I can only talk about my experience, and as I said, I'm still wondering what are the yeah, I don't know. I don't want to blame video games or male developers. I mean, especially because during the 80s and 90s, I mean, yeah, it was a different world, you know, at least in the video game world. But yeah, I have the same question. I always like think how this affect me, and yeah, I mean the perspective, the notion of gender, when you only have two options to choose, and I mean I was playing video games about them, and as I said, I have this I started like feeling this gray spectrum in between only by watching like this kind of alternative animes, you know, like the Zodiac Knights with Andromeda and Grandma.
It's also amazing how like things that you see on a screen can influence you in real life. Because I also had a dream about, well, that's why I said about this octopus, you know, this anime sex octopus that was like, I was having sex with. But it's just something that was invented online, and then it started to live in my fantasy. Anyway, I think we also have to move on, because in terms of time, because we have so many more speakers, and we will of course talk about this later in our panel discussion, because we have 3 more speakers, and then we have a panel discussion with all of them, and then we'll also talk about this part. Hello. So that's for later. But for now, we need to stop with you, Matias. Thank you so much for your presentation. And we go on to Lena, and we'll speak to you in a bit. Please hang on, and please stay around for the other presentations.
Shall I introduce Lena?
Yes.
So Lena Kuzmich is a non-binary, multidisciplinary artist with a focus on photography and video, currently based in Amsterdam. In their work, they imagine alternative visions of society, creating a fluid remix of fragments of pop and subcultures, imaginative landscapes and hybrid representations of body and technology become a portal beyond the norm and a liberation from preconceived notions about gender and sex.
Yeah. Freeing from the sex, or like, anyway, sorry. Yeah. Oh, there's Lena.
I'm really glad to be able to present my work to you today and take you on a small journey through my practice. To first maybe introduce myself, I was born in Austria and moved to the Netherlands to study photography there at the Art Academy, from which I graduated in July this year. And now I'm based in Amsterdam, and I'm mainly focusing on my own practice, working on video installations, but also photography projects. So everything in my work is quite image-based, and there is a huge importance to include the virtual, but also the physical space. So you will see in my work I reference the virtual space a lot, but still being also present in one's body and feeling one's body while looking at the work is also important, but you will see that later. And I identify as non-binary. I use the pronouns they, them in English. And in my work generally I explore possibilities of technology, but also the virtual space, to glitch the framework we are embedded in as people in the society we live in. So yeah, my work is very much about embracing oneself, finding one's identity, and also the spaces where people can be who they are. So I would say I deal a lot with life and well, as said, identity. So it's all very much about questioning the own self and finding a place to be. I will take you through some projects I've made during the past 3 years, and some of them are also connected. So yeah, I hope you will enjoy. The first project I want to introduce to you is a video work I made in 2019 while I was still at the academy. It was made in collaborations with photographers, amateur photographers found online on Facebook. So what I did was I posted, I just posted a text saying, hello, I'm a student and I want to be photographed. And then only white middle-aged cis man replied saying, oh yeah, let's do it, and then already asking if it's possible to do it in underwear or nude. And in the project somehow I would say I really had like a high tolerance of what I do, so I agreed to almost everything they said. So we met up in different places, in hotels, in their studios, etc. In general, I had 8 shootings in the Netherlands and in Austria, and they photographed me and they really embedded me in their fantasy while they didn't know me. So yeah, the project was very much about the representation of the people that have a similar body to me. How are we represented? How are we perceived? How are we photographed, framed, etc. And personally, back then, I was really struggling also with my identity. I was always asking myself, what does it mean to be a woman? And I was still very much trying to redefine what it could mean, until the point where I realized, okay, this is just nothing I can actually fully identify with. So yeah, but that will come a bit later. But yeah, so this point in my work was still about exploring the boundaries of how femme-identifying people, but also women, are represented often in pop culture and media and photography. So it was kind of about questioning my own tools or my own medium, because I also work with photography. And in the end, I made a video work and a book where I collected the photographs they took of me, and they're really all a very different version or vision of me, while none of these photographs actually correspond with who I am. Yeah, so this was the first project I wanted to get into. The second project I would like to show you is called Inside the House of Neverlasting Love. It's a video installation I made in 2020, and it's a continuation of the first project I have showed you called Gaze With Me. I went back to one of the photographers, and yeah, that photographer in my film has the role of the bunny, and basically the whole project investigates the ways of how society wants femme-identifying people and women to behave in order to receive love. So, for example, that you have to sexualize yourself to get validated is one part of this. And also through the experiences I made in the project with the photographers, a lot came up. I was asking myself, what type of validation do I want? I mean, such as every other person on this planet, I want to be appreciated and validated and receive love. And through the project, I kind of tried to find an answer to this crisis of asking myself, how do I receive love, and how do I have to behave in order to receive love, and how can I understand and also push against the framework of society that manifests for basically all groups of people certain behaviors in order to receive love, but also to just be. Like, society dictates how we should act. And yeah, with this project I really tried to look into that, and it was the first project where I really exploded visually and started to incorporate all the elements that I'm also very influenced by visually. The third project I would like to show you is, I would say, the last project of this trilogy of finding out who I am. And it's called Live, Love, Love. It was my graduation project made in 2021. And it's a very, very personal project because it's somehow the result of a long process of trying to figure out how can I combine the past, present, and future self. Because basically I grew up in a very normative middle-class family where being queer, neurodivergent, and an artist is something rather unknown. And well, I didn't grow up with these aspects, and when they started to come into my life, there was suddenly a distance created between where I come from and where I want to go to. And with the project I try to close this gap and try to really work with this inner conflict that was created. And visually, I worked with lenticular prints. It's a printing technique that I've been working with quite a lot during the past 2 years, and perhaps you know it from your childhood. It's these images that when you shake them, they change or flip or move or have this 3D illusion. And yeah, I really like them because they connect a lot to pop culture and this childish elements I'm very drawn to and that I appreciate very much. And basically in the work, I made these huge prints that were presented in this turning stage that also deals with narratives and this notion of backstage and front stage and how we construct and present narratives. And yeah, in the works I I basically combine photographs I took, so the characters, for instance, it's all self-portraits, also with my father together, and I cut them out and then I combine them with stock footage and found footage that I'm gathering online. So that's really a methodology I use a lot, because I think it's quite strong in its meaning, because basically I'm taking elements and I'm recontextualizing them. So I'm taking elements from certain ideas or frameworks and I'm building new worlds with it and creating new meaning. And I think that's a very, very powerful tool in general. And that's also where the possibilities of technology or the digital space come into play, and why they're so important to me, because basically they enable me to really visualize the imaginative landscapes and living beings I have in my mind, and they create a space I mentioned in my introduction where people can be, or where I can be, the way how I would like to, and they offer an escape. And also in my next project, which is called Embrace Me, I worked with that same technique, where I'm taking elements, combining them with my own work and making these landscapes. And Embrace Me, as well as Live, Love, Love, both deal with queerness and being beyond the binary, living beyond the binary. And in Live, Love, Love, it was a very personal story. It's really about, while also coming out as non-binary to my family. And in Embrace Me, it's just like a general celebration of living beyond the binary and asking or dealing with questions around the body and how bodies are perceived, both in the physical but also in the virtual world. And what is, I think, quite crucial in my work is that while I reference the digital space so much, and where I wouldn't even be able to not, like, to make the things I make if the digital world wouldn't exist or technology wouldn't exist, I still find it very important to present in the physical space, because I like to get a chance to take the worlds I create and let them overtake the physical world a bit. So whenever I present something, it's really important to me to expand my worlds into the physical space where my work is shown. And I think when also talking about technology, one aspect that is really important to mention is that technology offers great possibilities, especially for people who are marginalized, or where the physical world is sadly confronting oneself with violence, etc. The digital space offers such a great escape for both the body and the mind, and I think it has a huge importance for queer people, not only to be oneself but also to connect and find alternative realities. But that being said, I think it's also important to mention that technology, and through that also the internet, are still just a tool in the framework of our society. So it also has a lot of limitations, and violence happens there as well. And it's not all great. And especially if we look at climate change, I mean, it's not really an answer to just have everything digital. And that's also something I've been dealing with in my thesis that I have written for my bachelor, which is called Imagining Non-Binary Futures. And it's basically a hypothesis on how advanced technologies could kind of lead to the abolishment of these constructs of sex and gender. And there it's very like this utopian idea of technology taking over. But I do think this is not the answer, not the solution, because in the end, we as human beings, we're also nature. And I do think it's important to understand the problems technology has as well, or the pitfalls, and to, well, maybe use the possibilities of technologies more as a tool for awareness, as a tool for alternatives, so that knowing that technology could glitch ideas around the body and gender, etc., that this can help us to question systems of beliefs and the metaphysics of things and systems of knowledge, etc. So yeah, and that's also something I've been looking into with my more recent works, where I don't look so much into what could be through technology, but I look at finding these liberations and this freedom I experienced through technology, but then in the present world, in the physical world, and I look at nature and life forms that are queer or, for instance, non-binary. Yeah, so I think it's quite a huge, interesting topic, and I hope you enjoyed the presentation. And if you're interested in following my work, you can reach out to me per email or follow me on Instagram. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Stella. Oh my God. It was so extensive as well. Wow, right?
Yeah, we can save the questions for Lena for the panel. Just put them in the chat, and we will get back to them later. Because I would love to introduce the second speaker, that is Stella Marbles.
Wait, but if you have questions for Lena, you can just put them in the chat right now, and we will get to them. But first, we have to go on with the time.
Exactly.
Of course. Yeah. I'm also taking.
We're on a tight schedule.
Yes.
No.
All right.
So Stella Marbles is a mask designer, creative director, events producer, and queer performance artist. They produce a range of club nights and immersive nightlife events in London, showcasing alternative drag and queer performance art. And they will speak about their projects now. So thank you for joining us.
I'm so happy to be here. Let me just share my screen, and then we can get into it.
Great.
Here,
Can't
can
wait.
everyone see this?
Yes.
Amazing. So, let me just get it. Hi, everyone. I am Stella Marbles, and today I'm going to be talking about my project, The Mask You Live In. Oh, she's run away already. Okay, there we go. So first, I'll say a little bit about myself. I'm an American who's grown up in London most of my life. And as a creative director, I work in fashion, entertainment, music, and so on. And I collaborate with artists, brands, charities to create unique multimedia experiences and content that showcase diverse LGBTQ talent. And like you mentioned, my events focus on immersive nightlife experiences, which showcase drag and queer performance art. And as a multimedia mask designer, I work with plastics, metals, and 3D printing to push the boundaries of drag, but also to explore ideas of private identity, gender expression, technology, and sexuality. And my masks intersect design, science, fashion, and performance. Now, to start off, I'm going to have you all watch a short film, which is The Mask You Live In, and then I'll talk a bit about the process and the research behind it. And if you just want to let me know when it's done.
Will do.
creating emergent currents of newness. While decrying the one-dimensional and oppressive ways our cultural discourse construes and eroticizes gender, we refuse to erase any cultural reference that implicitly invites or even demands questions about bodies. As we fail, we morph. We're free of the darkness that binds. Makes monsters out of faces. Eyes without a face. Now that's scary. Transhumanism, where humans are morphologically transformed into something else. This means somewhere all of the attributes of human beings can be altered. Its proponents see themselves as the next stage of human evolution, their morphological freedom as the antithesis to the authoritarian biological, militaristic hierarchical, cruel human existence. Chances are that when you run into a post-human you encounter, they won't be recognizable as an identity, metaphor, or even biological mutation. If you run into a post-human, they will be recognizable by their affection for familiar machines, inexplicable passion for cosmetic surgery, and delight in hearing famous quotations like "all food." I love that expression, technology mutates us. You have queer and queerness as the result of technology because, in order to transmit information and ideas, you need some kind of representational body. I say post-human because of the transhuman aspect that, if I'm very lucky, will happen in my life. That is, I will ultimately become a hybrid, a post-human being in terms of the technology that will enable me to fully integrate my body. When it's become clear that we are both already dead as bodies and that we are growing increasingly impatient with our metaphorical death shrouds, the question becomes, what does it mean to take the body to its logical conclusion?
Okay, so that was
Wow.
the video.
Yeah, that was the video. We're very impressed. We're all
Thank
silent
you.
here.
Thank you. So now I'll explain a bit about what motivated the film and kind of the creative and research processes that were behind it. So the starting point of this project was the question, how can bioart and AI, artificial intelligence, be hybridized to explore transhumanism and queer features of identity? So to break that down a little, I was interested in the link between the body, technology, and queerness, and in connection with that, how queer digital spaces can be used to explore the potential for technology to enable alternative futures for queer people. And in connection with that is the hybrid nature of virtual and real identities going forward, and how those the more those get combined, the more potential we see for maybe alternative manifestations that are outside of what we're familiar with right now. So to rehash some of the definitions that you saw in the video, bioart is defined as the use of living systems and biological material through biotechnology to create art. And the term was actually first used in 1997 when an artist implanted himself with a microchip on live television, which was Eduardo Koch. And then biodesign is connected with bioart, but it is obviously has more of a design focus, and it's an aesthetic movement which integrates living things such as bacteria, plants, and animals into installations, artwork, and even into architecture like buildings. And lastly, we have transhumanism. Transhumanism is a movement that holds that human beings can and should use technology and use biotechnology to augment and evolve us as a species from a, kind of a bodily level going out to a technological level. And the interesting thing I found when I was first researching is that biotechnology and queerness are very much related. Gender nonconforming and disabled people are really the original biohackers, augmenting their physical capabilities with technology and science on a daily basis to solve problems outside of the medical industrial complex, and to even go beyond medicine in some ways, because they are living with the realities of whether it's their transition or their various disabilities. And where transhumanism comes in is it's using biotech not to just surpass gender and injuries, but it's to become more than human. It's to explore what is beyond our current idea of a human. And the post-human identity, the transhuman identity, is fascinating because it creates its own knowledge and its own reality as it forms and morphs over time. And then a connected element that I found really interesting about bioart is that even though it has a creative artistic focus, it often leads to real discoveries in biotech and in science. Because bioart engages with biohacking in that it uses the same tools as biotechnology, but it engages with the aesthetic and the artistic practices removed from the technical precision of the science. So biodesigners often work alongside biohackers and artists with a common interest in creative and unusual solutions to problems in the design and scientific worlds. And when bioart meets queerness, queer becomes not just the subject, but it's also the means of the practice. It's being messy, it's engaging with non-normative modes of creation, of thought development, of concept. And that lack of normativity is often what leads to the mistakes that cause innovation, whether that's in a design or in a biotech practice. For example, oh wait, let's go back. Yeah, for example, in the top left corner is E.G. Dewey's project Stranger Visions, in which they created AI portraits using rapid prototype sculpture from gum and cigarette butts off the streets. So it's finding really interesting new ways to form identity and creativity through even what we would consider trash and discarded material. So in creating the video that you just watched and my interpretation on some of these topics, I started with my practice in masks. And I used vacuum formed masks of my face and jelly molds, and I put food coloring on them. And I then left them outside to collect spores and bacteria from the air. I then put those materials in containers and I let them sit for 2 weeks so that the spores could develop in the agar jelly solution. And while it was based in scientific processes, I was playing with messiness and randomization and lack of intentionality and purposefully leaning into areas where there could be error in the process. I then, after they developed for 2 weeks, I took photos of the molds, which you can see some of the reactions here and how they engaged with the jelly and the food coloring, resulting in these really vibrant pieces of art and science. And so the next stage of the process was to combine bioart with artificial intelligence. So I took the raw images that I photographed and I put them into a creative AI. The AI then interpreted the images in its own way, and the result in the photos and the film were amorphous and fascinating. And it was showing how the biological and the technological mixed with the human, but also how both elements had their own kind of creative agency. And you can see more of these here. The next stage of the process is I used a form of hydroprinting known as water transfer printing to place these AI images back onto masks. And the result is surreal see-through masks which distort the face, and they blend both the mask identity with the real human face. And then the final element of the project was 2 installations. One was in a park in London, which you saw in the film, and then the other was in Amsterdam. And this was a way of allowing the public to interact with these masks and with other forms of the AI images in real time to kind of show how these virtual and digital embodiments can be combined with real experiences. And it's actually the engagement with us in a day-to-day practice is where we're going to find I guess, innovation and new modes of creativity through these art forms. And of course, the film itself. And a last bit on the audio and the film, I took various quotes from all the research and the theory that I've been reading through the project, and I input them also through a creative writing-based AI. The AI then generated its own writing, interpreting the original texts. And I really wanted to see how an AI would reassess musings on transhumanism and biohacking, but also create its own interpretations, which are both alien and then eerily familiar to our own. It's allowing us to look at these topics through a new lens. And it's allowing for the biological, the technological, and the human to have new means of dialogue with each other. And to conclude, this project rested on the agency of the AI and the biology to harness the potential for hybridized and unfamiliar concepts of the self, and especially of the queer self. To truly explore transhumanism, we need to disrupt our modes of operation in culture, in biotech, in science, in queer concepts of the body, and in bodily concepts of queerness. We must enact queerness in our creative and scientific processes. And most importantly, by giving space and agency to other beings and other systems of knowledge, microbiology, AI, even the divine, we can embrace this concept of the glitch and of error, and we can go past the conclusions of our body right now and honor the mess of the unknown, which will hopefully guide us to new futures of queerness and new futures of what it means to be human. Thank you.
Oh my God.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. That was so informative. Oh my God. I can imagine people have a lot of questions for Stella, but we'll do that at the panel discussion. First, we're going to Mala Bari. Thank you for now, Stella, and please do not leave us. Mala,
7,
sweetheart, Mala
8, 9.
Mala is here. What do I hear? This is not the thing. Mala, you are here physically with us, so that's beautiful. I'm very happy that you're here. Do you want to introduce yourself, or shall I introduce you?
Introduce me, yeah.
Yes, I will definitely introduce you. Wait a second, I have to find the text.
I don't know if my voice is well heard because I don't have microphones.
No, your voice is, I think your voice is heard. Is Mala's voice heard? Okay. Oh yeah, there's a Marit coming to the microphone. It's all live, so we all have some, it's backstage, forestage, everything is together. So Mala, you are a performer, conceptual artist, writer, political activist. You were born in Casablanca, Morocco, and now living in Amsterdam. And your writing and artworks focus on the themes of trans liberation, exile, and decolonization. And Mala, you use your art to dismantle and disrupt systems of oppression and to give her point of view about history and social change. Is that correct?
Yes.
Your pronouns are what are your pronouns? They, them, or she, her? They, them. I always call you she. We know each other for a long time. I always call you
each other.
I always call you she. Maybe I got it wrong.
Let's use they, them behind them.
Maybe,
It's use they, them behind them.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay.
Cool. Baby, what do you want to talk about? Please, tell us.
Actually, it's an honor to be here behind these beautiful colors and with you, actually. I wanted to talk about the embodiment of oppression and the human bodies, including the queer body. Because when I'm listening to lots of discourse, a lot of theories, a lot of things about queerness, it was always beyond the other questions of intersectionality that queer bodies are experiencing, such as race, class. Because of it, I think there is no single queer body as something independent in other things. Like classism affects queer bodies, race, etc., etc. So this is what I call the embodiment of everything on our bodies. I have a very, very, very cheap presentation.
Short presentation. Doesn't matter at all.
Yeah. So
Wait
the embodiment of a lot. No, it's fine.
No
It's
clicker?
will moves.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So if we can imagine that this is like two queer bodies sitting there, each part of their body, it's holding an embodiment of something, such as oppression, hate, discrimination, whatever. If we go to the next, so this is the artwork I just made recently, as draft actually, as draft to my work, that I can see that in this body, there is the embodiment of colonialism, like example, institutional racism, intergenerational trauma, racism, fear, sadness, exploitation, death, shame. So to understand this queer body, or like the actual queer body, or like the future queer body, we have to go to the back, and we have to begin from the beginning. There is no future without the beginning of the everything. When I was thinking how I met this, because I was in conversation with Moroccan queer person, I was making research about the Ras Arbeiders in the Netherlands. Those people who come from Morocco and Turkey or somewhere, like from everywhere, to work in the Netherlands. So my point was not about to say this. I was looking about the history of Ras Arbeiders as a newcomer, Moroccan, live in the Netherlands 5 years now, and they have to face it, all the racist insults, and that ik ben Moroccan. So I didn't know what's mean Moroccan in the beginning. So I want to go back to know what the fuck is going on with this Moroccan that we heard from the right wing scene Moroccan. So I want to know what the fuck.
What is the history?
What's this Morocco they are talking about? So I was talking to a queer Moroccan person, and I was talking with them about the embodiment, and also the Ras Arbeider things. And they told me that their grandfathers told them dat ik come here om te werken, not om te praten. This is good look something
It's good if
very.
I translate it for you a little bit.
I can translate it. I come here to work, not to talk.
Yeah, great.
Ik praat heel goed Nederlands.
No, but
Yeah.
They're not
I'm
a lot
just
of-
joking.
You just want to show
I'm just
off.
joking.
No, but there are not a lot of
I'm
people who
just
understand
joking.
Dutch.
So,
No one
so when I
actually.
was talking to them to them about this, and they tell me what grandfather says, and after 1 hour, 2 hours, I was talking to them about racism and institutions like such as school, and we are in art school, and they told me that I don't come here to fight racism. I come here to be good artists. So if you compare what the grandfather said and what is the great daughter say, you can feel the connection, that there is a passage of that's the passing of trauma, passing of fear, passing of understanding of racism, a passing of the reaction. So I made like a family tree from from all those bodies that they are holding with them such trauma and such sadness. So because of this, I always run from being only queer, because I'm not only queer. I'm also the embodiment of suffering, embodiment of violence. And I didn't hear a lot of people talk about race, because also how oppression creates from us who we are. We are the embodiment of the siècle, comment on dit, the siècle. We are the embodiment of history. We are the embodiment of struggles. We are the embodiment of suffering. That is what we had survived, but also what is our ancestors survives, including white queer bodies. Yeah, so I think we can go to the next one. So I use social media to promote to the revolution and to promote to my understanding to the world, to dismantle racism basically, and also to don't look at my queerness as only my sexy side. My sexy side is I just say sexy side. To look at my queerness as something bigger, as a universe. My queerness could not be complete without my Moroccanness, without my Islam, without all my identities. So yeah, I use this platform to also talk about decolonization and what's happening in Morocco against the police brutality. So this is the bad queers that they want to dismantle the systems of oppression. And this being like on social media and things talking about politics, it's quite, for a lot of people, it's bizarre. How these queer people talking like this?
What do you mean?
Because normally people, I mean, a lot of people, they want to send me their dicks and they feel shy because they think I'm like, or something like this. Or some people, they just try to talk with me about my sexuality by desiring me, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah, queer is not just sex.
It's also a lot of sex. I mean, just look at the queer body as only sexualized bodies, because this is the if we get back to the embodiment, this is the embodiment of misogynic culture and sexist culture that's only look on femme bodies and queer people as sexual bodies. We go to the next because I don't want to. You can follow me on Instagram, Mala Badi, by the way. So I want to share with you a video about how queer people on protests embodying social change and social justice. So this was in Amsterdam Pride, Amsterdam Gay Pride. So we just stop it and we reclaim our pride, because our pride is not no more this capitalist project that we want to be. We are there against police violence, for the liberation of Palestine and Western Sahara, for against the apartheid, for queer refugees, for the revolution in Syria. We are these queer people that they are embodying social change and social justice, and they refuse that this gay pride will be just like for partying and bringing the police to our pride and bringing the banks and all this capitalist shit, colonizing for the second time our pride. So I saw on these people, I love this person by the way, I saw on these people the embodiment of change, that queer people are presenting the change, are refusing the using of our case, I don't know, like capitalism, they don't give shit about us, but using our names, our everything to say like the Aynouk or like the shell that they contribute to destroy this planet, they are working with us on the pride, like example. Or like to go and find like any other left-wing or liberal political party using, and they are not even queer people, they are like straight men holding the game, the pride. So I say that future is how queer people can embody it, social change, how queer people can embody it, the freedom in its diverse form, and there is no liberation to one of us without liberation of everyone, or like everyone. So this is how I say the future of embodying social justice. So I would like them one day to heal, all of us, we're gonna heal from these traumas, from how we are holding, because generations before us, they doesn't have enough opportunities to heal, they didn't go to therapy, they didn't do the trauma work, we call it. So we are holding a lot of shit. So I dream that we're gonna free this body and free this planet and free everything. Yeah, this is it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mala. Thank you so much. All right. Manique, I saw you typing all these things.
Yeah,
what are you doing?
I mean, like for questions in the panel, you said so many beautiful, interesting things that I would love to.
Is it 10 minutes or less?
No, it was good. It was very good. It was
because if it's less, I would like to add some.
Yeah, you can add some more, because we're now going to have a round-up discussion with everyone. Where are all the people? Are they back? Oh, yes. I see Stella and Matias and Lena also. Great, you're still here. Again, if anybody has a question, this is the time. We'll also repeat the questions that were already there, but I just want to start with this first question while you, maybe also ask a question after.
Sure.
Just do a presentation, still have to search a little bit. But so I think this is a very interesting point that Mala made about to recognize where queer bodies come from without maybe talking about where we can go towards. And I also, yeah, how do you perceive that point of view? Stella, let me start with you.
Yeah, I thought it was a really, really important point that Mala made, and it's something that has been really relevant in my research. There's one artist in particular, Daniel Braithwaite Shirley, who is a Black trans artist, and they create digital spaces, and actually also going on what Matias's presentation, they also make video game spaces that are all about rewriting Black trans history and trauma, not rewriting per se, but embodying it, archiving it, allowing people to engage with it in new ways. And I think when we talk about queer embodiment and the future of that, I think acknowledging where it's come from, but also the potential of these new forms of technology to be a modes of archival and a modes of access for other queer people, I think is vital, because we can't, we in looking to our utopia, we can't forget our collective trauma, and more important than anything, we can't forget the trauma of the people who've been hurt most by the intersections of racism and queerness and and immigration and all of these things, because that we have to move forward together, if that makes sense. And I think that the artists who are using technology to embody that in a comprehensive way, I think that's where the potential really lies.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, so we do a question from the audience.
Oh yeah, the audience. Yeah.
So this is a question for Matias from Lars. Is Animal Crossing in a way of showing non-binary avatars?
I never play Animal Crossing.
Don't you? Yeah. So I actually play Animal Crossing a lot, especially during the lockdown.
What is Animal Crossing? I'm sorry. I don't know.
Yes, like you have this island.
You look a little bit caught. You're like,
I play Animal Crossing.
What?
I'm lucky I'm not the only one.
Okay. What is Animal Crossing, please?
So it's like Sims, but it's cuter, I guess. You have this island, and you can grow like fruits, and it's wonderful.
Okay.
But it also has like this anthropomorphic animals.
It's like a game, right?
Yeah, it's a game. But maybe hard to question for Matias. But maybe Stella has an idea about this.
Well, one thing that popped into my head during Matias's presentation in terms of digital avatars and where queer people often sit within that when they don't feel comfortable existing with, the masculine or the feminine avatars that are presented, is often queer people go to the non-human. They go to the monsters, they go to the animals, and I think that's really interesting, as like queer people are often historically have been depicted and have been treated as monsters. And so video games became a way to take ownership of that and explore that otherness in kind of a celebratory and a safe space, rather than one of pain and oppression. So I guess Animal Crossing is a good example of that.
Mala, is that something, because I do still want to also point out this notion of the past, I think it's very important. Do you think this idea of like going towards becoming an animal or a monster, or the expression that we have online, can it help in healing, in maybe expressing ourselves in different ways that can...
If it's helped, I will tell myself I'm still healing. I think that imagination is always important, because it gives options to the body, it gives options to our way of thinking, it gives options to our creations. I did heard something, I can't remember exactly where, but within the master's program I'm following, that there were artists, black artists in the United States, colonial United States. They were using a term that I really love it. They call it ancestral communication technology. So how these people were looking for, like, imagining technology that is ancestral, and that's give them the option to just like connect with ancestry and heal this intergenerational trauma a little bit. I don't know if it's a little bit or something, but like imagining other possibilities of the past. And yeah, like for me, I'm more thinking about like how my Moroccan ancestry have been and how I can use this technology as tool for me to heal, as tool for me to understand the world again and again. You know, like colonization just destroy everything, and sometimes you cannot get rid to the ancestral thing. And also the ways how we talk about technology, it's quite binary. And the sense that is the technology within internet and laptops and everything. But the technology, like communication as technology that can go through food, through clothing, through buildings, through games, through words, through poems. So also, if lots of white kids has the opportunity to stay behind their laptop all their life, other people, they have different ways how to develop technology.
Yeah.
You know, also the decentralization, the center that technologies only grow with these games, only grow within European people or with, you know.
Yes, diversity.
So also,
technology.
if we want to think about the future, we just have to forget this colonial past that's bringing us to what we are living now, the privilege we have now. That there is other people thinking about different future, and it's how that we have to know them, to discover them. Not discover them as case of Columbus, but I mean to dismantle the technologies also come from different places, from out of being this limited Western technology.
Idea of what is technology.
Yeah.
Oh my God, great point. Manique,
I have
questions?
a
I'm really
beautiful
like,
question.
we have only 20 minutes.
I have a beautiful question, which is actually for all of you to answer. So, from Petit, all your work seems to come from personal experiences while growing up and finding yourself. How do you feel your work makes you connect with people, other people with similar journeys? Maybe.
Lena?
Yeah, I think, it's quite a good question, because I think, I mean, how to answer this broadly. I do think that, for instance, one aspect that I see a lot with artists or queer artists is that we all somehow function in a similar visual world. I feel there are so many connections also with the people who have talked today. There's this almost like unconscious connection to how the world we live in, and I do think it's connected very much to history and how queer people have been portrayed, and pop culture, and like all these elements that are so important. And I think that's, for instance, one big part where I see a strong connection. And then another aspect is that, for me personally, I mean, what I find so beautiful about the queer experience is that it's so different. Like, it can be so different, and I have a different experience than, I don't know, like any other person. And while that is happening, there is still this huge connection as well, and we share a lot as well. And for instance, I've been starting to collaborate a lot with other queer artists during the last year. And before, I was always very focused on my own practice and my personal journey. And now, by doing these collaborations, I really see how we have like the same ideas without even having to speak about it. Because in a way, even though our experiences are very different, there's also so much being shared, and especially visually, I feel that's the case as well, because, well, I'm a visual artist, so that's very important to my work. But yeah, I feel that's like really something I've been discovering now, actually, like the past weeks, especially, that there's this huge I would say like collective understanding of the visual world, or that we inhabit, and its influences both from pop culture but also subcultures. Yeah.
Thank you. I also have a question for Matias. Did you see that here? Or you wanted to do another question?
Well, yeah, this one was actually for everyone to answer.
Yeah.
But
does anybody else want to answer this question?
Or should I maybe do it one more time? So all your work seems to come from personal experiences while growing up and finding yourself. How do you feel your work makes you connect with other people with similar journeys? Maybe Matias?
Yeah.
Can you elaborate?
Yeah, I mean, from the very virtual reality perspective point, I think, as I said, like, it's such a powerful thing to embody in a different body that, I mean, like, yeah, exactly like the examples I showed before, like, if you want to really know how it does feel like to be erased, to be a victim of harassment in the street, I think it's a very useful and powerful tool to just embody this person and put yourself in the same situation, you know. Yeah, what else I could say? I think, yeah, from like my work is about translating these feelings into directly into other people's mind, just by like be the person, the avatar they are representing in a very direct way, right? So in virtual reality, there's no irony or metaphor, like you are just being there, and the body you're embodying is the body I choose to show, and yeah, I don't know, I think it's a very direct way to show these ideas in a very accurate way. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, clear. And there was also another question for you by Lizzie, specifically for you, Matias. Can you think of any recent video games that have a better representation of non-binary avatars? Or have things, in your opinion, not really changed?
Yeah, I think VR chat is a very good way to show and to see like what is actually happening with people representing themselves, not only as humans but also as animals, like we talked before, and all the spectrum in the middle. This is something that is happening now. VR chat is really full of users. Not only VR users, but also you can go into VR chat with your computer as if it were just a regular game. And of course, in virtual reality, it's much more powerful. But yeah, I think it's I would say VR chat, yeah, because there are all these people modifying their virtual personas and how they represent themselves. I think it's very, very interesting. I have a lot of experiences there, not only about different VR body types or genders, but I don't know, I think I assist to a wedding at some point and in this virtual world, and things like that. There are a lot of things, weird things happening there, and I think it's one of the best contemporary digital experience you can have at the moment. Where, yeah, there are no limitations. You know, you can create the avatar you want if you have the knowledge to do it, right? But there are no limitations. Like there are no rules. You could be whatever you want, which I think is pretty interesting, especially now that the metaverse is kind of built in a very closed way, which is kind of dangerous. So I think these platforms, which are more free to use, and yeah, that doesn't have these constraints around what you need to do or what you need to represent, are very important.
Yeah,
We got another question in from Anne for Lena. This is so interesting. How did your art help you identify and to come out as non-binary?
Yeah, thank you for the question. And well, I think that my work is just a way to have a discourse with the environment I am in. So, and also my experience. I mean, I have always been a very curious child, and I just kind of tried to understand, like very simple. I just questioned things and I tried to understand. And I have to say that growing up in like the family I grew up in, nobody really answered questions. I was very like this loner child. And I think at some point I just tried to find strategies of survival or strategies to answer, like attempt to answer some questions. And then my work was a way to have this like discourse with the outside and my experience. And while I was figuring out who I am and what it means to have the body I have and who I want to be, who I want to represent, etc. I was doing works that were based or like focused around that as well. So I think like it's kind of a back and forth conversation between me as like a person and then my work, which of course is also very personal, and one is trying to help the other and like influences the other and inspires the other. Yeah.
Thank you for the answer. We have another question from Jonah online, and we have still 10 minutes to go, so please make your answer a little bit short. So how do some of the speakers, Jonah asks, how do some of the speakers feel about the tension between the digital as a safe space to explore and physical reality that then is still present with all its systemic injustices, as Mala expressed? So how do you feel about the tension between the digital as a safe space to explore and the physical reality that is still present with all its systemic injustices? Anybody wants to answer that?
I can jump in. I think to say that the digital space is without those systemic issues is
it's not.
I think is a little like, not like closet, but basically to say I think that the digital space has those systemic problems as well. You know, I think we've seen that in Facebook and Instagram and in the way that those corporations have used those digital platforms to, you know, alter global politics, you know, and to, you know, promote certain systems of thought. And I think we need to be incredibly aware of that. We need to be incredibly aware when we're on these digital spaces that it's not a free space, that it's not an equal space in terms of, you know, queerness or race. You know, there's still so much censorship of marginalized communities on these platforms. But in terms of there being, you know, certain other spaces on the internet and other digital mediums where we do get to explore freely, I think it's a bit like Mala was saying, in that we need to look at how technology can become integrated more and more in our daily life, and moving away from the predominant forms of you know, the laptop and the iPhone, you know, these screen-based technologies, because there are other forms of innovation of bringing technology into our day-to-day life that would allow that that exploration to become something that is more practiced, and it's not a on-screen, off-screen dichotomy. So I think giving more focus to that rather than these screen-based devices being the only mode of exploration. I think the more we do that, I think the more the potential to disrupt those systems will be possible.
Is the work that you do, or what your presentation also mentioned, the bio art, you know, like is that part of it? Because this is also something that happens physically, right? Is that maybe
Yeah.
a combination.
Like for me, I think like the role of the artist is like to make the change happen and to dig into the change to happen. And to be honest with you, I can share that most of people, like queer people that they get murdered or something like this, are people of color. If we talk in the European context, I cannot see a lot of them here to talk about these things. You know, with lots of violence going on, I cannot see that there's much of black people, queer people of color that present here to talk about this on this festival. Maybe next year you can take attention about this. But life, it's not that easy if we talk about like technology, but like the physical safety is not guaranteed under capitalism, and under the state, and under the police violence, and under poverty. So I think that the other opportunity of life is to change this world, and how we can use the technology, use the arts, blah, 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 and all these things we are doing to dig into this liberation for everyone. But to talk about other marginalized people, just to talk about them, I don't think it's enough. The enough is to really, really save lives, to really stop violence.
That is actually my.
And because of this, like art is the opportunity to show these things. So art is something that can facilitate the change, facilitate looking on the things, I don't know how to say this.
Yeah, well, but that is actually my question. To what extent can also the art that is being made online, or the progress of what we want to become, and I'm also thinking about a stream like, or an art like Afrofuturism, for instance, right? What very much combines the past with the future. But I'm really trying to also think about, and I think this question was also about that, to what extent these works can affect the systemic hierarchies that are still in place. Because if you can, like what Matias showed, for instance, can imagine you being a woman being sexually assaulted, and you can feel that physically, can that have political impact? That's basically my question. To what extent can the digital create a systemic impact for structural oppression? And art, I think, can have a political impact in that sense.
Yeah, totally, I agree.
What do you think about that? That was actually what I was asking you, Stella, about your bio thing. But Elena, you have your hand raised. Yes, Elena.
Stella can answer first. That's fine. I will just say something after.
Oh, well, Stella then.
Sure. Yeah, I was just going to say that I really resonate with what Mala said earlier on this topic, was that technology, you know, and at its very framework, it's ones and zeros. It operates on a binary of numbers down to its most base level of programming. And that's why, and what you're saying is, it's about hybridization with other systems that work in different ways. It's with biology, and it's with human systems, and it's with even, I don't know, like nanotechnology. It's and AI, because even though AI does operate in ones and zeros, when it's combined with biology, and then when that's combined with computer systems, it's like creating new modes of thinking in the brain. It's creating new pathways that aren't there. And I think that hybridization, and then combining that with art, and then combining that with, you know, with politics, and with the more we hybridize these creative and technological systems, I think that's where we're going to start to see solutions that surpass and that create genuinely new spaces to solve these problems. And that's a bit of like a wishy-washy answer, like how that's exactly enacted, I don't know. But that's where I think that a lot of the interesting potential is situated right now.
Okay, yeah, Lena?
Yeah, also thank you very much, Stella, for what you were saying, because I wanted to say something similar. Actually, I think that it's very important to understand technology not just as this laptop and screen and I don't know, all this type of things. I think it's more almost like it could be almost seen as a philosophy or so. It's a way to question the metaphysics of how our reality functions. It's a way to question how we construct knowledge, how we construct reality as well. And for instance, like that's also what I was mentioning in my presentation. When I was writing my bachelor thesis, Imagining Non-Binary Futures, I was very much focused on, okay, the possibilities of technology. And I was doing it in a very, I would say, sci-fi way. Like I was really imagining the craziest stuff. While now, like the next step of this thinking is to understand, okay, like this really broadened my idea of what life can be and how I can understand reality. And now I'm kind of trying to apply the things I've learned in my more immediate surrounding and also in maybe like the life away from technology. Like where do I find this in nature, for instance? And I think that's also probably a solution of how technology can be used, not against the planet or against nature, but also in symbiosis with nature, and also to find solutions for climate change, etc., etc. Because of course, like technology is not the answer to everything, but it certainly is like, a way to question systems and to question metaphysics and to expand them. Yeah.
I think we should wrap it up.
Yeah, we wrap it up.
right?
We have 2 minutes. I just want to say that your comment about inviting people of color is very important, and we have noted that. What else?
Maybe we can say something about tomorrow.
Tomorrow, yeah.
So tomorrow from 7 till 9, same time, same YouTube channel, we will focus on the work of Oliver Hunter Pohorille, also known as Scumboy, and we will talk about pluriform identities together with Marijke de Rover, Molly Soda and Nathalie Paneng.
Nathalie Paneng, yeah.
Yeah,
all the way. Oliver and Nathalie are all the way from South Africa.
Yeah.
And
Marijke
I hope they're not
from
having a
Brussels.
virus or something. But
I hope
anyway.
everyone is safe.
Yes, exactly.
And I would like to thank everyone here for joining and everyone online.
Yes, thank you so much for your input and your presentations. And we all hope we see you tomorrow with the theme of pluriform identities. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And
Oh my God, it's 1 past.
Yeah.
Oh shit.